Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Looks like a few more folks are joining the waiting room, so I'll just wait a few more seconds here before we'll get into our formal programming. Thanks for joining us. I'll give it to 12:02 and then we'll go. Of course, Greg, I guess you're on East Coast time, so it's 3:02 your time.
That's right. And I should mention, I see my colleague Carmela is joining us, so I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to join.
Oh,
so.
great. So we have someone else. And I don't have anything on Carmela, so if you want to introduce her after I introduce you, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, happy to do it.
Let's see here. I have someone trying to join from the waiting room that does not have a name. It's just eyeballs. I've never seen that before. It makes me somewhat hesitant to allow them in because I'm not 100% sure it's a student or someone associated with the university. I will message them. One moment.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Thanks for joining us today. Felipe Alonso here on behalf of the Career Center. We have Greg Witt with us from EarthJustice and also Carmela French, who's also joining us. And also a student, Marty Farrell, who worked at EarthJustice this last summer. For various folks are going to talk a little bit and give you some background on what EarthJustice does and the process to go about working for them. I have a little info on Greg to give you a little context. Greg is the legal recruitment manager at EarthJustice, focuses on not only senior level lateral attorney recruitment and legal fellowships, but also legal clerkships, internships, and a variety of the roles for one of the largest and well-respected environmental organizations in the country. Before Greg worked with EarthJustice, he was a legal recruiter at the FTC. And in 2018, he received one of the FTC's highest honors, the A. Leon Higginbotham Jr. Award. It awards recognizes supervisors, employees, and groups that have made outstanding contributions towards fostering equal employment opportunities. Prior to that work at the FTC, Greg also worked in professional development and recruitment at Arnold Porter in DC, very large law firm. And Greg got his BA in journalism from Temple University in Philly, and now makes his home in Washington, DC with his wife and daughter. Greg, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you and let you show the students.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before I get started, I want to introduce my colleague, Carmela French. She's a legal recruiter, also here with me at EarthJustice, also happens to be here in our DC office. Carmela, if you want to just give a little bit of personal background before we get started.
Sure. My undergrad is in conservation biology, so you can imagine that EarthJustice aligns pretty well to that. And I've been a recruiter for a little over a decade now, focusing primarily on how to diversify workspaces. I've worked for federal contractors as well as other big green organizations and built a number of student recruiting programs. So we're actually, Greg and I are working this week on next summer's clerkships. If you are interested, I would encourage you to apply now. The applications have been open all summer and they will close towards the end of September. So the sooner you apply, the better if you are interested in a summer 2023 clerkship with EarthJustice.
Great, thank you. And to that end, I'm going to just, before I get started, just drop a few links in the chat. The first is the aforementioned clerkship application. 20 of our offices and programs are hiring summer law clerks. The applications close on September 23rd. So if you haven't already submitted an application, we strongly suggest that you do so as soon as possible. The next link is about our other student opportunities, which include externships in the spring. We'll also have externships in the fall. We have several available right now, so it's a great time to apply. And then the third link you'll see is a brief overview of just our general hiring process. So I'm gonna just go ahead and share. I'm trying to, let's see, share my screen. Let's see. All right, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so I try to start from what people want to know in the beginning, right? And where are the jobs, right? People want to know, where can you work if you're interested in working at Earth Justice. We have 15 offices across the US. That star you see, I hope, is located somewhere near Houston, Texas. I'm not great with geography, but Houston, Texas is our newest office, our Gulf Regional office. We're just in the midst of staffing that office up. There's a lot of important work to be done in the Gulf region of the country. So we're so glad to have a full-time office there. In addition, we have an office in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, 2 offices in Alaska, that's Juneau and Anchorage, a Honolulu, Hawaii office, a Bozeman, Montana office, a Denver office. The second most recent office is our office in Chicago, our Midwest regional office. 2 in Florida, that's Tallahassee and Miami, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and New York. I don't think I missed any. So those are where our offices are. And the other thing I imagine a lot of people in this room are interested in is about the summer law clerk program. As I mentioned, I should talk a little bit about the structure of the organization. We have regional offices, and those regional offices do work across all of our major subject matter areas, which are lands, wildlife, and oceans, climate and energy, and environmental health community work. And so our regional offices do work across all 3 of those subject matter areas, focused on a specific region of the country. We also have an international program that works really closely with other organizations and communities doing this work around the world. And then we have subject matter programs that are focused on specific subject matter area that need not be tied to any specific region of the country. And in fact, that work is often national in scope. So we, for example, have a fossil fuels program. We have a sustainable food and farming program. We have a community partnerships program, a tribal partnerships program. Attorneys and other professionals who are working in those areas may be located in many different areas of the country. And so again, 20 of those offices and programs are hiring now. Our summer law clerkship is paid. I believe the stipend is now $1,280 per week. That is less any funding you may bring on your own, right? So if you are part of, I don't know, Equal Justice Works, and you get some funding from there, you get some funding from University of Oregon or elsewhere, we will make sure that your weekly stipend will equal $1,280. But if you get $5,000 from Oregon, Earth Justice's contribution will just be $7,800, whatever the case may be. You don't have to have funding. We'll fund your entire summer if you don't bring your own funding, but that's just how the pay structure works. And if you have any questions about that, we can talk about it at the end. And we mentioned before, applications close on September 23rd. Some of the feedback that we got from law clerks who worked with us in the past and folks who have applied is that a lot of our offices were on different timelines. And that meant that sometimes students didn't get the opportunity to interview with maybe their top choice already wrapped up hiring, or by the time their top choice reached out to them, they'd already had 2 other offers in hand. So what we've done this year, we heard your feedback and we've gotten everybody on the same timeline, which is why we have sort of this hard application close date on September 23rd. So we really advise you to get your applications in sooner rather than later, because our teams are going to begin evaluating them on a rolling basis very soon. All right, so besides the summer law clerk program, post-graduation, we have the associate attorney program. And this program is designed for early career attorneys, trying to help them develop as advocates, skilled in the various aspects of public interest litigation. Candidates typically have 0 to 4 years of litigation. We do regularly hire people fresh out of law school. We also hire folks who decided to do other things for a few years and then, apply to us a little bit further on in their career. The associate attorney program is actually a term program. It's a 3-year term for associate, and then can be extended for 3 more years as a senior associate. And this is a program that is not an up or out program, right? we're trying to keep as much strong talent at EarthJustice as possible. And so don't be scared off by the fact that it's a term program, because we're doing our very best to keep all of the best talent at EarthJustice. And I think we've done a tremendous job in terms of retaining our associate talent and advancing them up to our senior attorney role, which is like the next level and sort of like the premier litigation role at EarthJustice. That's usually when you're 6 or 7 years out or more, and you're leading cases from start to finish. You're supervising the work of other associates. It's a really important role at EarthJustice, and it starts from the associate attorney program. So how do you apply? Typically, this is the pretty typical layout of all of our applications across, even if you're not interested in litigation work, across our other programs and offices and departments. I want to call attention to the cover letter, though. You, over the course of this fall hiring season, probably going to hear from different employers, and some of them may have a different approach to the cover letter than we do at EarthJustice, but it's really important to us. We read all of them. So if you have the opportunity to really put some effort into your cover letter, I think it will really serve your application well. And that's for any role at EarthJustice. So I wanted to flag that. That's something that our hiring managers really pay attention to. But, you know, I've sat on panels with other employers and they say, I don't look at the cover letter, I just look at the resume, don't, you know, but that's not us. So I just want to make sure I made that pretty clear. Writing samples, people often ask me, hey, I don't really have an environmental law writing sample. Give us your best writing sample, is what I would always say, even if the subject matter doesn't exactly line up with what we do. An example of legal analysis that really shows what you can do, but just also pay attention to the applications in terms of, you know, page limits. You know, if there's, I know sometimes it's hard to get a good excerpt, but if there's like a 10-page limit, don't submit a 30-page writing sample, that sort of thing. And then, yeah, transcript references, professors can count as professional references, but other than that, I want to make sure that you are submitting professional references, be they professors, former employers, current employers, things like that. No friends, cousins, things along those lines. If you can take environmental law, you know, take it. I think it's helpful. It's not a red flag if you haven't taken it. I think the legal writing and research piece of it is probably going to be the most important, particularly for somebody who's going to be coming in as an associate. You're going to be doing a ton of writing and research. So, you know, doing well in those big sections when you first start is going to really give you a good foundation for working at EarthJustice. But again, you need not have a long history sort of in the environmental movement. You need not even know that you were interested in environmental law until maybe you participate in a talk like this or meet with somebody at a panel or something like that. And I want to flag particularly for folks who are just interested in doing public interest work and don't have organizations like EarthJustice sort of on the list. You know, the work that we do, like, there's so many cross-cutting issues that affect, particularly, like, you know, everything that we do is going to be in community, right? And we understand that affected communities are often communities of color, tribal and indigenous communities, who are affected generally before everybody else and often worse than everybody else when it comes to environmental harms. And these issues, we're talking about, you know, clean air, clean drinking water, safe food to eat. We're talking about how housing and all of these things affect that work. There's a real social justice bent to the work that we do at EarthJustice. And it's really, you know, it comes front and center. Everything that we do, we're working in partnership with real people in real communities. So I would just say, even if you hadn't thought about environmental law as a career path or working at an organization like EarthJustice as a career path, but know that you want to do something in the public interest, know that you want to serve your community. I think we're an organization that could really serve you well in that regard. So I just want to keep that in mind. So what do we look for in candidates? We have a holistic hiring perspective, and we use something that we like to refer to internally as the 3 legs of the stool. And this is for every single role, be it like a VP of litigation, all the way to, an associate attorney or somebody even coming in as an intern or a law clerk. We're looking for functional skill, and that's just like, can you do the stuff that we put on the job advertisement? Do you meet, most or all of those criteria? Are you culturally competent for the reasons that we mentioned before, right? Working in partnership and community, working with communities who've been affected. And then also emotional intelligence. And that comes down to, one, we do a lot of work in teams. We do a lot of work across different departments. Our litigation teams working hand in hand with our policy and legislation team, with our communications team. As you get higher up, probably in the organization, maybe you're touching development a little bit more, staff scientists, paralegals, folks like me in HR. So it's really important to be able to work well with one another, to be able to manage conflict and resolve that. So emotional intelligence is a big part of what we do. The other thing, passion counts, right? Having some sort of connection to the mission. Again, you need not have been, involved in the environmental movement since you were a kid. You need not be an outdoorsy person or whatever the case may be, but having some personal connection to the mission, I think, is something that we see in a lot of candidates. And so that's something to think about, particularly when we're talking about that cover letter, being able to express that in that cover letter, right? Because that's not something that it's going to always show up when you look at a resume. We talked about professional references, and one of the links I dropped in the chat was, discussing our Get Hired page and talking a little bit more about what the process looks like in real life when you apply to EarthJustice. So another thing people always ask us about is what is it like working during COVID-19? So our offices have been on a hybrid schedule since April. They're calling this period sort of a little experiment, trying to figure out what the future of work is going to look like at EarthJustice long term. I think I'm not on that team. I think it's safe to say that we are not coming back into the office 5 days a week the way we used to be. So we need to we're trying to figure out, working in partnership with our leadership, our real estate and workplace safety team, our and all employees, right? A ton of feedback being given in from all of our employees to figure out like what's going to happen. And I said next month, but actually the beginning of our long-term decision-making process is going to start in October. And so it's been sort of a 6-month experiment, seeing how we are doing with this hybrid schedule, again, 2 days a week. We're certainly hiring more full-time remote roles, depending on the nature of the role. So that's something to be aware of and stay tuned. This is another thing you do, and this is a great opportunity. You can set up job notifications using this link that I've posted here, and I'll drop it in the chat. Basically, you enter your name and your contact information. You select the job categories that you happen to be interested in, and then whenever jobs that meet your criteria become available, as soon as they go live, they just pop up in your inbox and you can get a look at them immediately. So that's something I always suggest for folks who are interested in working at EarthJustice. And then I also strongly suggest that you keep applying. Do not be turned off if you are not selected the first time you apply. I remember someone internally said that, the average number of applications people submit before getting selected, I think it was somewhere like 3 to 5. Associate positions in particular are highly coveted. And we often get, over 100 applicants. That's not to be discouraging. That's just to be honest about the nature of the process. But not being selected for a role does not reflect negatively on you as a candidate. We are lucky enough to hear from a lot of great candidates, and sometimes we have really tough decisions to make. So I just would, tell you to not get discouraged and continue to apply, and reach out if you have questions. I don't. As a recruiter, I have to sort of live on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. I'll make sure I add my LinkedIn link. Feel free to connect with me there. Ask me questions. I'm happy to help. And yeah, follow us on social media. This slide was sort of old because I don't have TikTok up there. We do have a TikTok. I am 41, so I know nothing about TikTok, but I know it exists. You should check us out. And please stay connected to us. We have a, EarthJustice Act, in addition to, posting about, in some cases, new jobs and things that are going on. We have a ton of information about what the organization is doing. We have a great social media team that keeps us, that keeps the public well informed about what we're doing in terms of, again, across all of those 3 major subject matter areas. So, please stay connected and follow us. And yeah. Oh, one more thing, shameless plug. EarthJustice is hosting an event on a virtual event on September 8th at noon Eastern. So it's an early start. It's 9 a.m. Pacific. But it's called How EarthJustice Builds a Justice-Centered Environmental Movement. And we have 4 of our attorneys, Dominique Burkhart, Jasmine Crenshaw, Lorena Velez, and Michael Ozieta, who are, at different levels of experience, but working on really exciting stuff as it relates to, as I mentioned before, working very, very closely in partnership with communities, particularly as it relates to energy justice, climate justice. Lorena is actually located in Puerto Rico and does a ton of work with the communities in Puerto Rico. The Florida Regional Office does a ton of work in the Southeast, and the Community Partnerships Program does a ton of work across the country. So that's a really fantastic event. I'm gonna, as I stop sharing, drop the link to that to that registration in there as well. I would love to see your faces on that call. I'm going to be moderating the call. It's going to be a fun time. You have an opportunity to ask questions directly to attorneys that are working at EarthJustice, doing the work. So I want to thank you all for your time. I know we have Marty here as well. Marty just wrapped up his clerkship with EarthJustice this past summer. So actually, I'll just cede the floor to you, Marty, and just, I don't know if all your classmates know you, if you want to introduce yourself, and then maybe we could just talk a little bit about how the summer went.
Yeah, that sounds great. Felipe, was there anything in particular that
Greg was reading my mind? I thought that would be a great transition.
Cool. And also, Greg, I just realized this. I didn't know you went to Temple. I went to St. Joe's in Philly. So we have that Philadelphia connection.
I had no idea.
Yeah. I was born and raised in Philly as well. So just came out to Oregon for law school. But yeah, I know some people on here, not everybody, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marty Farrell. I'm a 3L here at Oregon Law. And as Greg and Felipe had mentioned, I clerked with EarthJustice this past summer in the Northwest Regional Office, which is located up in Seattle. And I actually worked remotely this summer, so I can talk a little bit about that experience in particular as well. But I know it gave a little bit of background on me in the email that was sent out. But before law school, I worked for 3 years in Philadelphia at a shelter for people experiencing homelessness, doing development and community relations there. Came to Oregon Law with a desire to do public interest, specifically was interested in environmental work, and kind of had my eye set on EarthJustice as an organization that I really, really wanted to work for before I graduated. And so I clerked for Cascadia Wildlands in the summer of my 1L, which is a smaller environmental organization here doing environmental work in the Pacific Northwest. In the fall of my 2L, I clerked for the Environmental Defense Center in Santa Barbara remotely, doing similar work at a similar size organization, just more specific to coastal issues in California. And then I applied and kind of to go to what Greg had talked about applying and not being discouraged. I applied probably to, I think, maybe 10 to 12 offices or programs within EarthJustice for that 3L summer. And I was rejected from almost all of them, but I got one interview at the Northwest office. And then after that process, which was, I think, about like a 2-interview process, I was offered the position there. And so I can give like a brief overview of kind of what my summer looked like, but if there's specific questions, and I think, okay, that was just Greg sending stuff to everybody in the chat. So I started right after finals in May, and it was an awesome onboarding process at EarthJustice was really thorough, organized, and got me engaged, especially being remote, with every person in the office, from senior attorneys to associate attorneys. I was able to get FaceTime and meet with every single person, learn about everybody's work. My supervising attorney met with me to kind of learn about my interest, what I wanted to work on, and then through a combination of that and what the needs were for the summer, placed me on some projects. And so I worked on a multitude of projects throughout the whole summer, with about 4 or 5 different attorneys, ranging from state law issues in Washington state, to federal issues surrounding Endangered Species Act and Clean Water Act during my time at EarthJustice. And the types of work that I did in these really varied from like small, quick turnaround research projects to longer form research projects that were then turned into memos for clients. And then also smaller that then was built into bigger research projects that were related to like motions in court that I was able to then draft with the supervision of an attorney in that office. And yeah, so that's just a broad overview of what my summer looked like. I don't know if Greg or Felipe have specific questions that they want me to get into, or if anyone else here has them, but I'm happy to answer whatever.
Yeah, I probably open up the floor to the rest of the room to ask questions first. And if they don't, I can probably ask a few myself as well.
Since no one's jumping in immediately, I do also just want to let you know, on the employment side, EarthJustice is a 501c3, so we're also an employer that's eligible for the public service loan forgiveness program. So I just wanted to flag that for you.
Certainly valuable information. I see Danielle, you have a hand up.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. The first for Marty, which is what was the interview process like, or what kind of questions did you get? And then the second, more general, if you do apply, if you're doing like this broad application process, and let's say you get something in Seattle, but you're interested in maybe working in a different location, does that kind of hurt you?
Yeah, Greg, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? It doesn't matter.
Well, my answer is going to be quicker. So you can apply to as many of the offices. I should have mentioned that earlier. So 20 offices and programs are looking for law clerks right now. If you want to apply to all 20, you can do that. And applying to all 20 would not negatively affect your application at all for any of the offices. It's very much expected. I would imagine that most people will apply to at least 2 or 3. So no, that's no problem there at all.
And in terms of numbers, there's 20 offices, but I'm expecting about 50 clerk slots. So not every office is only hiring 1 clerk. There may be multiples.
Yeah.
So, and now we have aligned the hiring timeline. So all of the offers should go out at around the same time, so you can make more informed decisions.
Thanks, Carmela.
And then in terms of like what the application and interview process looked like for me, as I said, I applied to a lot of offices, and I think I did that in the on the earlier end of the summer, probably around June, and got rejected from most of them or hadn't heard back from some. And then I applied again through OCI here on campus. And that's, so I don't know what the timeline of that is like right now, Felipe, but I want to say I applied like in early September through OCI. And then about mid to end of September, I got an interview with the Northwest office. The first interview was a shorter one with one of the associate attorneys at the Northwest office. Felt a little bit more of like a screener, just generally like what my interest was in EarthJustice, what my background was, what I was hoping to get out of a potential clerkship with EarthJustice. And then from there, I then found out that I was being brought in for a second interview, and that was more of like your traditional like law clerk interview, specific questions about my experience in law school, my experience before law school, what my interest was, why working at EarthJustice was important to me, and kind of to hit on a point that Greg had shared earlier, it really did feel that, so I did a lot of interviews in OCI last year with a variety of different places like public interest and private firms, and the EarthJustice interview definitely felt the most holistic out of all the interviews that I went through. I felt at the end of it, like they really knew who I was, outside of just what my transcript or resume might say. Like full transparency, I know that when I was looking at EarthJustice, it felt very far out of reach, just because of the reputation that the place has as being the top one, like the top environmental public interest group in the country. I'm not in the top 10% of my class at all. My grades are nothing to write home about. Like they're fine, they're average. So I don't really stand out in that regard. But I felt like the interview really took into account my passions, my interests, things outside of just what I looked like as a student on paper, for why I might be good for the job. So I would say, like, in preparation for the interview, again, it probably varies based on the office. But for the Northwest office, I think going into it, being prepared to share about what your background is, why you're interested in it, why you're passionate about the work that EarthJustice does, would really help you.
And thank you so much for that, Marty. And I should flag that one of the things that has changed with our process this year, based on feedback, is that we're not participating in OCI. And that's because, you know, part of our process was you participate in OCI, but then you also had to apply via our applicant tracking system. So submitting your application materials to Simplicity or 1220 or Handshake or whatever Oregon uses, plus submitting another application to our website while you're in the midst of OCI trying to speak with other employers. We wanted to streamline the process for you a little bit. The substance of the interview process remains the same. The other piece of it is similar to Marty's experience, right? Marty initially applied in June, which I think is the case. If you're going through the OCI process, your bidding begins probably like in June or so, something like that, maybe earlier. And we wanted to sort of line up with that so folks can apply as early as they would like, typically like early summer, but the actual application review is starting very soon. So we have a period where all of our offices are reviewing applicants at the same time. All of our offices are evaluating applicants at the same time, and all of our offices are are making offers at the same time. So there's not this, huge difference between, I'll call out like our Northeast office typically got started really quickly, but they're also one of our most popular offices. And so what you would find is that sometimes they would wrap up their interviewing process before many of the people who were interested in working there even got a chance to apply. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that less people have that experience and more people have a shot to apply to and be evaluated by all of the offices that they have to be interested in.
The other aspect that Marty mentioned was being prepared to talk about your experience and your passions. And you'll find this on the hiring process link that Greg shared earlier, but we do evaluate candidates on 3 main aspects. So being able to talk about, what environmental justice means to you would be a good thing, because that is the bulk of our work, right? We are going to represent clients who are in environmental injustice communities, who are living on the front lines and that sort of thing. So being able to talk about that and discuss your ability to work with external communities would be very helpful.
And I'll just tag one more thing to that and open up and make sure everybody gets the opportunity to ask more questions. Even if you don't have a ton of experience working directly with frontline and fence line communities, or working across cultures, an interest, a real sincere interest in doing that work counts. And we want you to be able to express that in the interview process.
Any other questions we can try and address for y'all?
Marty, can you tell us a little bit about what, like the training opportunities and the substantive training events that we offered throughout the summer? Did you get a chance to attend any of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a ton of training events that are offered throughout the entire summer. Specific ones on like legal research and writing, oral advocacy, and then also so there were programs that were put on by EarthJustice, like the national organization, and then so those were like the ones on legal research and writing, oral advocacy, things like that. And then also in our office, there were different trainings and informational sessions that were put on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis throughout the summer, so that we could learn more about practical skills, like other stuff related, more specific stuff related to legal writing, more specific stuff related to oral advocacy, and then also substantive issues, which was really helpful. Because I know as Greg, you had mentioned, it's not a prerequisite to have any kind of formal coursework or background in environmental law or any of like the specific statutes that you end up working with. And so it was really helpful for me when I'm working on Endangered Species Act projects, Clean Water Act projects, that we were having these different trainings throughout the summer, both offered by the national organization and our office, that were providing us more context and information about the substantive areas of law by leading experts in the country who work for EarthJustice. So you're hearing not just about the history and the context of these things, but also about pressing stuff that's going on with them right now that you may or may not be working on in your office. So there's definitely a huge educational component that I really appreciate it in my time this summer. You're given a lot of work and you're expected to jump in and start working on that work, but there also is a lot of a huge educational aspect that went along with it that I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Danielle, looks like you have your hand up again.
Yeah, I can keep you asking questions. So if you are interested in working in maybe a certain office, or is it possible to get like multiple exposure to things? Like if I applied to the SF office because I was interested in international work, but then I also wanted exposure to sustainable foods, which is based off in New York. Is there any opportunity for kind of learning about other subject matter interests?
There's definitely opportunity to learn across different subject matter areas for sure. In addition to some of the presentations that Marty mentioned, we have all staff calls regularly where our different representatives from different departments give presentations about their work and especially like actual cases that they happen to be working on in the moment. So that's one opportunity. There are also informal opportunities to learn from folks in different departments. People at EarthJustice are really good about connecting with folks and answering questions. But then also, there's also often real crossover in our work. To give an example, we just merged our clean energy team. Before we had a coal program and a clean energy program, right? And the coal team was focused on shutting down dirty fossil fuels, shutting down coal plants, shutting down coal-fired power plants. And then the clean energy team was obviously focused on clearing the way for clean energy and working in partnership with local, state, and federal government to make sure that people had the opportunity, that public service commissions, public utilities commissions, to make sure that people had the opportunity to switch over to clean energy and to push. I mean, you see the state, the ruling in California with, no gas vehicles by 2035. Those are the types of things that team worked on. But they found they were working together all the time, right? Because when a coal-fired power plant shuts down, you don't want it to be replaced by natural gas, for example. At least we don't at EarthJustice. And so those teams were working together so often on those types of issues, it just made sense to kind of make it official. There are tons of those informal partnerships and crossover, and some of it is actually much more formalized depending on the nature of the work. That happens all the time. So you see teams working together You mentioned our international program, for example. We're in the midst of hiring a senior attorney to oversee international energy transition work, right? And so that attorney, then there's actually already another attorney doing that work. It's going to be working really closely with our clean energy program to, in some cases, replicate some of the things that we've been able to do in the US and other countries, and also, evaluate what the differences are, what approaches we can make. So there's often many opportunities to work across different programs and offices.
I do want to clarify, though, that I would definitely bring up any interests you have when you first arrive, if you are selected for a clerkship, and like make that known early on, because, there's also the way our departments and programs are kind of set up is some of them are like generally localized, like they have national work, but they tend to work out of the Chicago office. So if you're in, say, the Los Angeles office, there would have to just be like a knowledge of the interest that you had ahead of time. And I also want to clarify that it's not like a rotation. So you would be working primarily on the work of that office. And many of our offices are regional, and the regional offices are responsible for cases that fall under their geographic space, which of course could be any of our programs, from sustainable food and farming to toxic exposure to clean energy and climate. So there's a lot of variety in the offices, but there's also some like inherent limitations. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
That's a really good point, Carmela. And then, also when we're talking about regional offices, the regional offices do work across those three major areas that I mentioned earlier in the call, but also depending on which office you work in, it's going to be skewed a little bit, more towards one of those than others, right? So if you're in, let's say, DC, there's probably less lands, wildlife, and oceans work than there would be in Bozeman, for example. Though that's not to say there is none, but if you're more interested in doing that type of work, there are some offices that are probably better suited for you, for example.
And each of these programs are thoroughly outlined on our website. So I really encourage you, if you're like, well, do I want to apply to 12 or 15 of them? You can get some of the answers you're looking for from the individual program pages. Greg, would you talk a little bit about your thought process around people who are kind of still determining where they want to go with their legal career, but like know they want to work in public interest? Because we have such like an intersectional space. I know we've brought in a lot of housing attorneys and former ACLU civil rights attorneys. So just if you could provide some insight there, I think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Carmela. Carmela's right. What I'm, mentioned earlier in the call is that, this is not a job that you had to have been, I volunteered at Greenpeace for this many years in high school, and we see candidates like that, but that's not typical. It's not a red flag if you don't have that history, right? As Carmela mentioned, we've hired a ton of people from the ACLU. We've hired folks who've been working on specific, just like housing issues. We've worked on, we have attorneys who were former labor attorneys, immigration, because so many of these issues, the first thing is we hang our hats on litigation, right? We have policy and legislation, and we have a bunch of other things that we do with the org. But EarthJustice is known for going to court and winning. And so if you are, particularly as you become more experienced, if you're a strong litigator, we can teach you the environmental statutes, right? It's much harder to teach somebody how to be a strong litigator if they don't have that experience. So we are open to candidates from many different types of backgrounds with many different types of professional experiences. And that's reflected a lot when you talk, our managing attorney of our Northeast Regional Office came straight from the ACLU and had very little environmental experience before she joined us. Our new vice president of litigation was going to be working out of our Houston office, ran the ACLU in Houston, for example. We have a senior attorney working on right to zero work in I believe he is in LA, who worked on housing issues exclusively. a new senior attorney in our Northeast office, came straight from the ACLU, working on human rights issues, for example. So the point I'm trying to make here is that what we need from you is to help us make the connection between your experience and what we do, right? A resume, it's not going to always be obvious there. So if you can help us make those connections, particularly in the cover letter, I think that's a great opportunity to bring different types of skills and experiences to EarthJustice, because we're a growing organization and we're trying to become a more well-rounded organization, particularly one that has a focus on working with people. You know, we're 100% donor funded. That means our clients don't have to pay a dime when they are represented by us. And so being able to connect with communities and meet people where they are, and think about all of the issues that are affecting them. Even our policy and legislation team has a huge access to justice program. And of course, you know, having access to the courtroom to represent yourself is an important function of any community, particularly when you have big corporations, you know, putting slap suits together to keep people out of the courtroom, you know, and not have the ability, even if an organization like EarthJustice is willing to represent that client for free, keeping us out of the courtroom before we even get there. That's not just an environmental issue, right? That's an issue for all people across, you know, many different subject matter and practice areas. So those are the things I think are really important to us at EarthJustice. And that's why I want to make sure I make it clear, even if you don't have a ton of environmental experience, if you haven't taken the course environmental law or whatever the case may be, I think we can still be a great place for you to get your career started.
And this also kind of illuminates why the cover letter is important, especially if you're coming from a different mindset. Tell us about why, you know, tell us why you want to make this change. And so, you know, I've seen some very interesting and compelling arguments come through cover letters saying, like, I realize that I may be working on XYZ thing, but the core issue at the heart of all these problems is climate or whatever it may be, is a really compelling narrative. And we need everyone in this fight.
Any other questions from the group? Any thoughts? Marty, did you maybe already said this? Are you open to other students contacting you about their experience, your experience and the application and all that? And
Yeah, absolutely. I'll drop my email in the chat, and just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to connect. I'm here in Eugene this semester, so I'm happy to connect in person or over the phone or over Zoom or whatever. So I'll just put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Marty. And I think, Greg, you said you live on LinkedIn, so you're always available if the students reach out to you.
That's right. And I'm glad. Thank you for the reminder. I'm dropping that in there now.
Well, perfect. Well, unless someone has any other questions, or Greg or Marty or Carmela, if you have anything else to add, I really appreciate everyone making the time to join us today and present. And it sounds like a really awesome application or job and opportunity. I think it's really helpful how you all deliberately made it a little more consolidated process. I think it sounds a lot more streamlined and a little easier to navigate for students, which I think that was kind of the impetus behind it. So that's
right. Yeah, look, we tried to take the feedback that we received from you. I can't imagine what it's like to be a law student, particularly now, and managing all of the interviews and all of the different, you know, sets of application materials that everybody requires, and you know, it's a lot. So we want you to join us. So we want to make it easier for you if at all possible.
I will do a shameless plug real quick for our associate jobs for our 3Ls. If anyone here is starting to graduate, we list all of our onboarding timelines for our associate jobs in the job description. So you'll be able to see underneath like what to submit. Like we're expecting to onboard somebody with our April cohort or our June cohort. So all that information will be available if you're following along on our job page. It'll be in the advertisements.
Danielle, I thought I saw your hand one more time. Was that just a residual hand?
No, I just thought I'd leave one more. I know that the focus is on litigation, but how much emphasis is put on maybe like partnerships with organizations that could be better? Or is it all just kind of everyone's researching to prepare for litigation and people are going to court? Is there any more kind of maybe more creative element to it, or is it more retroactive, going after people?
No, it's a really good point. So we actually are, so we recently hired, well, recently, getting close to a year ago, a director of litigation and partnership advancement. And he's building out his team. I think they're just a 2-person team now. But the whole purpose of that role is to, one, deepen the already existing relationships that we have with communities. And then 2, create and establish more relationships that probably should exist, right? Areas that we may have missed, particularly as, you know, when I first joined EarthJustice in 2019, we were like a 350, 360 person organization. And now we're trending pretty darn close to 600 people in 3 years. So the growth has been crazy over the past few years. I expect the growth to probably continue, certainly through this next fiscal year, which started for us in July. So we're going to continue to grow as an organization, and maintaining relationships with the communities that we serve is really, really important. And that's something that I think is an area that the organization is focusing on and devoting resources to that part of the work.
Danielle, anything else? Got to follow up to the follow-up? Okay.
No, I'm gonna let everyone go home.
Okay. Okay. Well, once again, thank you everyone for the presenters, and also for all the students who joined us today. And if you have any follow-up questions for anyone, feel free to reach out to them. Also reach out to the Career Center anytime. And thanks all. Have a great day.
Great seeing everybody. Take care. Please apply. Please show up on September 8th. Hope to see you.